All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so today we have a professional growth and career development lunch and learn with Illinois AHEC. So as you join, please type your name, organization, and email in the chat box so we can track attendance. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure your mics stay muted unless it is time for questions. Feel free to use that raise hands feature. And if possible, please keep your camera on so we are talking to an audience. For any questions, like I said, you can use that raise hand feature or put it in the chat and we will address your questions during a time for questioning. Please check out our Help Guide Thrive website for upcoming trainings, job postings, and more, and also join our Slack channel. At the end of the session, you will be directed to an evaluation screen, so please complete that right away. The link will not be available after 2 p.m. today. Also, do not share the evaluation link. Whenever you complete that, you will get a proof of attendance for a contact hour. All right, so today we have Nikki talking about LinkedIn and your job search. She earned her MPH from the UIC School of Public Health Community Health Sciences Division in 2019 and is a former trainee of UIC's Center of Excellence in Maternal and Child Health. She's worked in the field of workforce development since 2017 as part of the Urban Medicine program at the UIC College of Medicine, which prepares future physician leaders to work in urban and underserved communities. Nikki is a trained yoga teacher and a walking enthusiast. In 2024, she is trying to maintain an average of at least 13,000 daily steps. That's awesome. All right, I will go ahead and turn it over to Nikki.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. I have to admit that my 13,000 steps a day goal is a little rough right now, but just in full transparency. So yeah, thanks so much again for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about using LinkedIn as part of your job search. So our agenda, I'm gonna provide an overview of what LinkedIn is. We'll talk about elements of an appealing profile, creating a job search, and then identifying your network. So some of the objectives, what I hope you'll walk away from today's webinar with, is creating or updating your profile so that it has a lot of keywords and is a really attractive LinkedIn profile. You'll be able to list keywords and phrases for an efficient job search, create a job search alert, and then follow at least one CHW group or another group of your choosing to start building your network out on LinkedIn. Okay, so really quickly before I dive into the content, I would love to get a sense of how folks are already using LinkedIn, if at all. So if you could write in the chat, if you have a profile, if you've never used it before, if you are a LinkedIn expert and you're just here to brush up on some things, I will wait a minute to see what folks have to say. Okay, Sabrina does not use her profile very much. How about others? It's for around 2 years, not an expert. Okay. Great, Kelsey. That's awesome. Okay. So continue to put things in the chat about your experience with LinkedIn, but it sounds like we've got a mixed group here, which is fantastic. So let's start with some of the basics of what is LinkedIn. So it is a job search engine. It is a global professional networking tool. People all over the world use it. And the coolest part of it for me is that it's a living CV or a living resume. So it showcases who you are as a person where a CV could not. So you can elaborate on a lot of things that there just simply is not room for, even in a cover letter necessarily. And then it's a resource hub for skill development and a social media platform. Okay, so what are some of the pros and cons of LinkedIn? So first and foremost, let's talk about the good things. So some of the advantages are that you can connect with like-minded people and share information about your discipline or even your own career journey with a network of folks that are important to you or the work that you're doing. Additionally, it starts to take some of the guesswork out of getting an in with companies. So I can certainly speak to my own experience, and I'm sure many of you can relate that oftentimes when you get jobs or get interviews at companies, it can usually be because you know someone there and they can help advise you or put in a good word. So LinkedIn kind of does some of that work for you. If you don't know someone at a company, you have the opportunity to know someone at that company because you can search and see who works here, how long have they been here, who do I know that knows them. So it's a really cool feature, I think. And then furthermore, you can do a lot of learning on LinkedIn. So you can join groups, do webinars. There's even courses that they offer now on LinkedIn, which I haven't tried before, but friends of mine have, and it sounds like a really cool experience. It's often free. So there's lots and lots of learning to be done on LinkedIn. And then again, it really streamlines the job search process and offers a lot of professional growth. So sometimes colleagues, peers, other folks you know might post positions on LinkedIn that wouldn't necessarily be on Indeed or other search platforms. Or you might see it on LinkedIn first, or because you have notifications turned on, you might see it first. So it's just a great way to learn about who's hiring, and they might even be someone you know. So that being said, what are some of the downsides? And I think first and foremost, particularly for me, the maintenance of it. It's another thing to maintain, like on top of already maintaining your resume or your CV, you really need to make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. And when I say up to date, I don't mean that you're posting every day or posting what you've eaten, but that you're at least updating it, I'd say every like 6 months to a year, just to make sure that it's still highlighting the things that you want it to highlight, that your about section still reflects your values and who you are. So as long as there's some kind of maintenance, but again, it doesn't have to be every day, but it can if you want it to be. The other downside is it's more screen time, right? Like, especially if you have the app, it's so easy to get sucked in and scroll. Because it is, again, it's a social media platform. There's lots of information on there all the time. So I think in this day and age when we're trying to disconnect a little bit, it's another thing to draw us in. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then finally, it can be really easy to compare yourself. I find that job searches can often be daunting enough. And when you're seeing folks that are getting jobs or moving up in their company, it can be a little exhausting to constantly see that, and it's easy to feel down on yourself. But I just want to put a friendly reminder out there for LinkedIn and any other social media network that you might use that the internet isn't always real, and there's often more to a story. So just be cautious as you use LinkedIn, and yeah, be gentle with yourself not to compare yourself to others too much. And for folks who either have no experience on LinkedIn or tons of experience, I'd love to know what other pros, advantages or disadvantages that you've personally gotten from using it. So you can take a second, put that in the chat, let us know. I know for myself, one of the things I love is staying connected to folks that I went to graduate school with, and I see when they're doing new things or got a promotion or had a kid or whatever it may be. And it encourages me to reach out to people that I would otherwise probably not reach out to because I didn't know what was going on in their career. So I think that's a really wonderful way to stay connected to folks. Okay. Yeah, Kelsey, I relate to that one a lot. It can be difficult to use. It's not super user friendly, I find. It's hard to find the creativity. I think especially when you have other people that are naturally very, very good at being social media connoisseurs, influencers, whatever you want to call them. I think it creates a lot of additional pressure to make yourself stand out. But I hope what everyone walks away from this webinar with is that basics are the best, right? Like you can never go wrong with just having the basics. Yeah, great. Using LinkedIn to search for key people in hiring departments definitely helps you prepare for interviews. Yeah. Okay. Feel free to keep putting in the chat some like disadvantages and advantages that you've found from using LinkedIn. Okay, so all of that in mind, why use LinkedIn? Why have LinkedIn? So to that, I say I really recommend using LinkedIn because CHW employment in particular is projected to grow 14% from 2022 to 2023, which is much faster than the average for all occupations. And what this translates to is that annually there should be about 8,000 openings projected on average over the next decade. So that's a ton of jobs opening up. And I'm sure, as all of you know, technology is expected to increase. It's increasing before our very eyes all the time. So this is really likely to lead to more online and remote recruiting. So LinkedIn is, I think, going to become a really important tool in job search and making yourself, be connected to your discipline. And then finally, it's a way to be competitive, make yourself known, and to remain up to date in the field. Okay, so now let's talk about LinkedIn profiles. And I want to give this disclaimer that LinkedIn offers so many features that it can be overwhelming. But again, like I said earlier, you can never go wrong sticking to the basics, especially if this is your first time trying to create a profile. And there's also no right or wrong way to build your profile. You, of course, want it to be professional, polished, clean, spell checked, nice photo, all of those things. But ultimately, how you use LinkedIn is it's up to you how you want to use it. So these next few slides will provide a guide, but it's by no means a requirement or a hard and fast rule. Okay, so what are the key elements of a LinkedIn profile? So first, include a profile picture. You're not required to put one if you don't want to, and you can even change the settings to make your profile picture hidden to others, but I think it really makes a huge difference in making your profile welcoming to folks, especially if you're gonna like cold message people because you want an informational interview or you want to connect about something or ask a question. I think it makes folks more likely to respond when you have a profile picture because they know who they're responding to. Utilize the sections. So LinkedIn profiles have a ton of sections about experience, education, certificates, volunteer, projects, et cetera, et cetera. There's tons there. That is your space to elaborate on things that a CV or a resume would not have space for. So really utilize those to craft your story. And then I think this is true of resumes and CVs as well. But when you're describing your job history, don't just list the responsibilities. You absolutely can to describe what you did, but also describe what you accomplished, because companies always want to know what value you'll bring to the work that they're doing, and especially in this line of work, to the communities that they serve. So for example, let's say you worked on a diabetes education program at your last role or your current role. So that's wonderful. It tells what you did. But I think that statement can be enhanced. So looking at the next statement here, it says recruited and retained over 50 community members to participate in a 4-week-long diabetes education program, resulting in an average report of better outcomes. So that was really long, not super well written, but I just want to show the difference between this is what I did versus this is how I did it and what became of what I did. I think it's much more powerful and folks like to see that. And again, keep it up to date. So important that you keep it up to date. And as you edit your content for your profile, I really recommend doing this in a separate document. So like in a Word doc or a Google Doc, so that you can workshop things, make sure you like the wording. You can send that document to colleagues or friends, have them look over it. You can spell check before publishing to LinkedIn, because once it's published, you can change it, of course, you can edit it, but it's published. So you really want to make sure it's polished before you make it go live. So now let's look at a wonderful example of a profile. And I want to give a shout out to Nicole. I don't know if she's here today, but thank you so much, Nicole, for allowing me to use your wonderful LinkedIn profile as part of this webinar. So we're going to talk about why I picked Nicole's profile. So first and foremost, she has a really clear, inviting photo. The background is very simple. She's smiling. It's a welcoming photo. So that's fantastic. Secondly, she's got this community health worker identifier. So if I were to click on her profile, immediately I would see her face and I would see what she does. So that tells me a lot just between these three things here, right? That what the field that she's in and what she's doing. And then I really, really loved her about section because it highlights her key skills and values. And this is showing me who she is. So in particular, she starts off by saying she's empathetic. She's bilingual, which to many recruiters is a huge asset, right? She goes on to say that she's looking to further her career. She's got years of training, lifelong learning, predisposition for meaningful advocacy work, and she wants to work with folks that rely on public health and social service resources. So again, from just this little piece of the LinkedIn profile, I've already learned so much about Nicole. Oops. And then, so this is a little excerpt of just part of her experience section. And I picked it because it shows kind of the three different ways that you can set up your own experience section. So in this first one here, this community health worker role she had with, or has with healthcare alternative systems, she decided to put a description of what she does. So she says she's contacting organizations, helping people, et cetera, et cetera. There's obviously a lot more there than what I'm summarizing, but so she tells a little story about what she's doing at that organization, which is a wonderful way to talk about your experience. What she does in this second line here, the community health worker position with the Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, you'll see that there's this little diamond. And this diamond indicates the skills that you either got from the job or brought to the job, right? But either way, they are skills that you possess. And so you can connect skills to jobs that you've done, and we will talk a bit more in detail about skills in a second. Or finally, especially for the folks who have not created a profile or haven't updated their profile in a while, it is absolutely and totally fine to just list your title, who you worked with, how long you were there, and that's it. You don't need to write a beautiful story or list your skills. It certainly enhances your profile, but I think if this is your first time creating one or it's been a while, just again, stick to the basics and put it all out there, and then you can craft it more later on. Okay. So now we're going to talk about buzzwords or keywords, for better or worse. At the end of the day, LinkedIn runs on algorithms just like any other social media site. So it's really important to include the right words in your profile so that it attracts the right connections and job opportunities. So I want to point out this Community Health Worker Common Indicator Employer Survey that was published in 2023. If you haven't read it already, and it'll be linked at the end of the presentation, but if you haven't read it already, it's super rich with information. And a lot of what I'm going to present on today was pulled from that survey. And so it's from employers in Illinois who specifically hire community health workers. And so they listed the core roles that community health workers have in their organizations. So they're doing cultural mediation, care coordination, advocacy, capacity building, et cetera. So you can bet that most employers are going to look for this in their applicants as well. So you can take that information and put some of these keywords into your profile. So for example, if I wanted to include keywords in my about section, I just wrote this quick one here. I'm a community health worker trained in cultural mediation with 20 plus years of experience advocating and providing direct support to at-risk youth. So I use 3 different keywords just in that quick sentence. So it can be really easy to incorporate some of these throughout your profile. If you are like me and lack creativity or just could use a little hand or support and have something more guided, you can start out with this template for your about section of your profile. So you can say, I am a, whatever your job title is or your keyword that you want to use, with X years of experience working in this field. I help this population, or I have the most experience with what XYZ, and I do this by what you do. So to put that into a more concrete example, I wrote, I am a culturally competent outreach worker with 10 years of experience working in federally qualified health centers. I help at-risk LGBTQIA+ youth by connecting them to affirming care. It's straight to the point, tells you what I've been doing, how long I've been doing it, and the population I'm interested in working with or have been working with. So then when it comes to keywords for skills and describing your experiences, I want to again point out findings from that survey. And these are the services provided by organizations that have CHWs. So there's social support, case management, community advocacy, et cetera, et cetera. So these are also excellent things to start including in your experience section when you talk about it, either as the narrative, or you can add these things as skills. And again, we'll talk more about the skills in a second. So an example experience section that incorporates some of these keywords. If you're a community health worker with Community Solutions, Inc., a company I completely made up, you might write, I'm the lead community health worker for at-risk youth in Chicago, Illinois. I provide culturally appropriate case management services while building community capacity through weekly programming and monthly workshops with local nonprofits. So again, I immediately incorporated 3, if not 4 different keywords there that would indicate to an employer that I have the skills that they're looking for. Okay. So now we'll go a little bit deeper into talking about how to highlight skills. So this is from my own LinkedIn profile and a project I worked on in grad school. So I used a narrative to talk about what I've done. So I said I developed healthcare navigation curriculum, I co-facilitated, I collaborated. So that's a wonderful way to talk about skills. But the way to really use LinkedIn and all of the tools and resources that it has is to use the skills feature. So again, that's when what it looks like is it has this little diamond here to indicate skills, and then you pick the skills that you want associated with that project or experience. So when you add skills to experience or projects or education, what have you, they're automatically compiled for you in a separate skills section. So let's say someone is interested in knowing more about your career experience. Maybe they want to reach out to interview you, or you've already applied and they want to interview you, and they need to know if you have survey development experience. So rather than reading through your entire LinkedIn profile, they can scroll right to the skills section and see if you have survey development listed. So it's a really cool feature, I think. When adding skills to your experience section or to your experiences section, my recommendation is to only focus on your top 5 skills. So you have the option to add, I think it's like over 50 skills, but this approach can really start to dilute the value of your top 5 skills that you should really highlight or that you feel are your strengths related to your overall career or just that specific experience. This next point gets into some of the nitty-gritty of how to use LinkedIn and where it starts to get a little bit less user-friendly, I think, to me. But you can ask for endorsements, and endorsements are essentially, think like Google reviews for your career. Like someone's recommending you because they worked with you or they know you have this great skill and they want to talk about it. So you can ask for people to endorse you, and likewise you can endorse others. And the endorsements are great because they create a wider reach and also add some credibility, right? These are your reference letters essentially, but like public for all to see. So recruiters can search for people based on a skills match feature or filter, excuse me. However, you'll only show up for recruiters on their search if that particular skill has been endorsed. So this might go over folks' head if you haven't used this before, and especially if you're not on the recruiter end. But what I want you to know from this is that asking for endorsements and writing endorsements for others really, really helps to create a wider reach. And then finally, when you add skills to your profile, LinkedIn can tell you how your skills match up to jobs posted through LinkedIn. But I do want to say too that if your skills aren't matched completely, or it shows that you don't have a particular skill that they're looking for, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. And I think that's true of most jobs, right? You might have the experience and the skills just in different ways. So yeah. So to recap really quickly, some LinkedIn profile basics. First, include a photo, a warm, welcoming photo, simple background, smiling face. And then at a minimum, I would recommend creating these sections and try to incorporate at least 1 to 2 keywords, if not more, related to your job search in each. So your about section, your experience section, education, licenses, and certifications, and then skills, which again is automatically created when you add skills to the above sections. And then I'll say it again, keep it up to date. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions so far.
We have one in the chat. Is there a resource / website we can explore more keywords to specific types of jobs?
That is a good question. There may be, I think for sure, if you haven't looked at that common indicator survey that I've mentioned a few times now, I would absolutely make sure to read through that. Otherwise, I'd have to look into it. This is the one thing about LinkedIn is there are a ton of resources out there and a ton of opinions too on how to build a profile and what keywords to use. And there's programs that can, like AI can optimize things for you so that it has, there's a million different ways to approach it. So I would say start with that survey that I've mentioned, just look through that. And then if you still have questions about it, I would just Google and see what's out there. But that's one of the issues. There isn't any one resource or website that I've found at least where you can find more keywords to specific types of jobs. But if other folks know, please, by all means, put it in the chat. You're welcome. Okay. If there are no other questions, I will move on. But feel free to keep putting questions in the chat as we go. Okay, so now let's talk about the job search itself. So the LinkedIn job search feature allows you to filter by title, location, industry, experience level, and so much more. And then from there, you can save your job searches, receive alerts when new job openings match your criteria, or save jobs to apply to later. And back to keywords. Many different titles, as I'm sure you all know, are given to community health workers. There's community health worker, outreach worker, care coordinator, etc. So there might be a job out there that perfectly aligns with your experience and career goals, but it's under a completely different title. So as you're doing your job search, I'd say on any platform, not just LinkedIn, I would try using a few of these to see what kind of results you get. And likewise, again, from this survey, these are the types of organizations that generally hire community health workers. So community-based organizations, FQHCs, health departments, etc. So this is just another thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about what kind of industry you might want to work in. Okay, so now let's go through demonstration. Let me switch my screen really quickly. Okay. So this is what LinkedIn looks like when you first log in. And let's say you want to start a brand new job search. So in this top bar here, you'll see it says home, my network, jobs, messaging, notifications, etc. So you're going to want to click jobs. It's this little briefcase. And then let's say you were looking for, a community health worker role. Oops. Community health worker role. And I picked Arlington Heights, Illinois. That's where I grew up. And just from the title alone and the location, it rendered 127 results. So a lot to pick through here. And you can scroll down and see what's listed there. You can see that there's multiple pages. And then once you're looking at each job description, you'll start to notice that different companies will share or withhold different information. So for example, this first position here, refugee health coordinator, they shared their hourly range. Other jobs will not share that information. So just be cautious that not every job, will be as giving with information off the bat. So, and some of them too, you can see like for this one, it says that there's been 6 applicants. This is because they have this easy apply option. So this is, I think I mentioned it earlier, where you can apply directly through LinkedIn rather than going to like an external application site, which is a cool feature. But again, not all companies use this. And then under here, you'll see this is the skills matched thing that I talked about. So it's showing that I have, 8+ skills that match some of what they're looking for here. So that's the benefit of adding the skills to your profile is you'll see, if you have 0 skills, again, it doesn't necessarily mean, or not that you have zero skills, but 0 skills matched to the position. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't actually have those skills. They might just not be the skills that you've highlighted. So I definitely encourage you to still read through the position summary and what they're looking for. Let's see. Okay. I wanted to see if there was something else I wanted to share there. So let's say you're spending time looking for different jobs and you find a couple that are really interesting. You can click, I already saved this one. You can click save. And then it will compile all of the jobs that you're interested in applying for into another window. And then you can go back and sort through that way, just to start to compartmentalize things a little bit. What else you can do here is create your job search alert, which I think is one of the better features of LinkedIn that I really like. So let's say you found a lot of positions under community health worker in Arlington Heights or wherever you are, and you want to make sure that you get alerted when new positions come up. So it's super, super easy. You see up here, there's this little set alert option. You just click that. And then down here, it says your job alert was created. So you can go to manage alerts. And you'll see I already have outreach worker saved here and community health worker. So right now I have it set so that I'm going to get notifications anytime there's a new position that falls under this general criteria. Yeah, let me show you this part. So you can edit your job search alert so that you're getting notifications daily or weekly. And you can also decide how you want those notifications. So email and notification, like especially if you have the app, or email only or notification only. And then this feature is really fantastic too, but you can decide to turn on or off whether or not you want to be notified for similar jobs. So it might not be a job that's exactly outreach worker in Arlington Heights, but the algorithm works in its magical algorithm ways, and then it can show you other positions similar to it, which I think is a great feature. And then there's also this top job picks for you option. So it says you can get recommended jobs based on your profile and activity. So again, this is another reason why it can be really important to regularly update and maintain your profile, and be sure that you're adding skills and keywords, because this is how they find the jobs and send them to you. Okay, so let's go back. Oops. To the job search. So the other thing I want to point out here is, like I said, there are tons of filters you can use to find jobs with specific criteria. So right now I have 138 results. Let's say I'm looking for something entry level. Right away, it narrows it down to 92 results. And then I want to, let's look at all the filters. I want to make sure it's a contract position. Now I have 1 result. So I want to make sure that you're all cautious of how you use these filters, because it can really, really narrow down to almost, just 1 option, or sometimes even none if you get too specific. And oftentimes, let's say that it's really important to you to have the option to work hybrid, but because everyone, or employers, I should say, post their jobs differently, they may not list specifically in the LinkedIn job posting that it's hybrid, but maybe they're willing to do a hybrid situation. So my recommendation is always to keep your search criteria a bit more broad. Okay, let me switch back over here. So general tips for your job search alert, as I was just saying, be cautious of using too many filters. If you make your search too narrow, it can lead you to miss out on job opportunities that could have really been a wonderful fit for you. So start broad, and I'd say keep it broad too, unless there's a non-negotiable. And again, companies don't always post things like salary, experience level, etc. Furthermore, my recommendation is to create no more than 2 to 3 job search alerts so that you're not overwhelmed with notifications, especially because you can get them on a daily or weekly basis. It can be a lot in already crowded inboxes, and I think can just make it that much more daunting. So again, you can change your preferences to receive alerts daily or weekly. And then use the save feature when you find jobs you're interested in. And as you use the save feature, it also, works the algorithm magic so that it's easier for them to send you jobs to send you relevant alerts. So the more specific you can get in your job search criteria, the more specific the jobs that you are sent through email or through notification become. Okay, I'm going to pause really quick and see if there's any other questions or if folks would want any other kind of demonstration on how to use LinkedIn.
We had one more question in the chat. Are there any specific organizations CHW should follow on LinkedIn?
That's a great question. So I did do a search earlier, and there was one that I found that seems to be more general that tons of folks are a part of. It is called Just Community Health Workers. So let me show you how to find that. And actually, that's a great question because we can talk about how to search for groups too. Oops. Okay. Let's go back to the LinkedIn homepage. I'm just going to type community health worker. And you'll see right away, you can look at jobs under community health worker, people working within community health worker fields, posts, companies, etc. But what we're talking about now are groups. And you can click see all group results. This is the group I was talking about, community health workers. I'm not a part of it myself because I'm not a community health worker, but there's 8,000 members in it. Their goal is to sort of bridge some of the gaps between folks and use it as a space for connecting and communicating. And you can even see things like how often people are posting. Like if it's really overwhelming for you to have 100 posts a day, maybe it's not the right group to join, or maybe it is. So you can see all of this different information and who you're connected to that's part of the group as well. So there's a lot of great information there. And then you can see there's 291 results for community health worker groups in general. I tried to find one for Illinois in particular that's just like a general Chicago or Illinois or Cook County group. I didn't have any luck finding one, so maybe it's a wonderful idea for someone on this webinar to create one and then share it with your networks. That could be a fun way to engage with community, who work within your community that way too. So if anyone knows of any other groups, I think it would be wonderful to put them in the chat as well. NACHW, awesome, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or demonstrations I can do on LinkedIn for folks? I know I zoomed through the section about adding skills, so I want to make sure that's clear to everyone. Okay. Let's look. Judy asked if the Illinois CHW group. No. But it's Illinois. What's the A? CHW.
Community Health Worker Association.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make that as a suggestion to them.
Okay. It's possible that I'm just not typing the right thing too. So keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, so what now? Now that you've been given all of this information, my recommendation is to create or update your profile using some of the guidance given today, and then start to build or expand your network. So maybe join the, and I'm sorry, I don't know the acronym, the full acronym. NACHW group is a great place to start. The other group that I mentioned, just that general community health worker group, which seems to have folks from all over in it, could be a great place to start. Even looking in groups outside of just the community health worker niche, like public health groups. I say that because I'm biased in public health, but the American Public Health Association, groups, things that you want to stay up to date on and that you're interested in. And then take the leap and post to introduce yourself, especially if it's a local group. Ask folks if they want to get coffee and just connect about their experiences. And then additionally, especially for folks who are just starting to build their LinkedIn profile and build their network, start with people you know and have worked with. I think I first created my LinkedIn profile in high school, maybe, so over a decade now ago. And at the time I had asked, do I add everyone that I've ever met? And the answer was no. The general recommendation is no, you don't add everyone you've ever met, but definitely add the people that you've had direct experience working with in any kind of professional capacity. And then ask for endorsements and likewise offer to give endorsements to people that you've worked with. And then if you're job searching, be patient with yourself. And if you're using LinkedIn to learn new things and connect, remember to have fun while doing it. Okay, and then that's all I have for you today. So we can move into more Q&A. And it looks like there was another question in the chat around, do employers in general check people's LinkedIn as one of their references before moving or not into an interview? I think that's a great question, and I don't have a definitive answer to it. But I would say, generally speaking, it depends on the company and it depends on who is hiring, right? So I'm involved in hiring right now for student positions at the College of Medicine. And I know for me, it is really important that I get to know the folks that are applying to our position. So I do look to see if they have a LinkedIn. But I think it totally depends on the employer and also the how many people are applying. So if you get thousands of folks, especially initially, the likelihood that they're looking at your LinkedIn is probably lower versus if you're in an interview stage already, you're probably more likely to have your profile looked at. So I think, again, this is why it's so important to keep your profile up to date so that just in case someone does look, it's ready to go and reflects your values and your work. Does that answer your question? Is that helpful?
I think what's happening is that more and more employers are using LinkedIn. I mean, I'm not saying the percent, I don't know what percent are now, but as we move forward, I think it's going to become more common. So we might as well, get ourselves in the game. And then I just wanted to say something about how to update your profile. So Nikki was talking about how often, and how often is important. But the other thing is, if something has happened, like you earned a degree or you earned a new certificate or your job responsibilities changed, you either had some taken away or new ones put in or some of both, whatever. So that is event triggered rather than timeline triggered. And I think, especially when you're searching for jobs, you have to keep track of both. You might gain some new skills, or you might have realized that there were some skills that you should have listed that you didn't list. So the time interval is important, but also think about what's happening in your own career and make sure that your LinkedIn profile represents that. That's the great thing about when Nikki said that you can think of it as a living resume. It's so much easier to make those changes than in something that you're emailing to people, and they might have one from you that's 2 years old, and that's just what they have.
Absolutely. And Judy,
And
oh,
you
sorry.
can Nick, am I wrong? But you can put a link on a paper resume to your LinkedIn page.
Yes.
If you want people to go there for the most recent or more expanded. This is how we got into including this in our professional development series, was that some of these job aggregators wanted 1 and 2 page resumes and nothing more. And that meant for community health workers, they were having to leave out a lot of their details. So that you can, just like we do at the university, we have the option to say, for a complete listing of all our publications and all our grants, go here, and you have a link to the National Library of Medicine, and you can manage the length of your resume that way. And I think right now, LinkedIn is the best equivalent of that for CHWs.
Yeah, and I want to add 2 things to that really quickly, and then I want to make sure we answer Andrea's question. So thanks so much, Judy. I totally agree. You should absolutely be posting milestones as they happen on your LinkedIn. And I would say, I think it's safe to say it's becoming industry standard across all disciplines to add a LinkedIn profile to your resume. So, you know, that's certainly standard. The other thing I wanted to mention that I think is a cool feature for projects you've worked on or any jobs you had, you can also add links to like reports that you've done. Let's say you're really proud of a report that you've worked on with folks, or I don't know, you created a really awesome flyer for something and you want to showcase how you have design skills, whatever it is, you can also add those to your LinkedIn profile. So again, it's just another way to make your profile stand out and to really showcase your portfolio of what you can do. Andrea, what's your question?
So it's not really a question, it's more of an anecdote. So I made a LinkedIn profile, I think it was last summer, and I used it for a little bit, and I do still get certain job postings for community health worker, for other stuff related to the community as well. And I've been able to, not for me, but for other people that I know that might benefit from it. And I think that's another tool that LinkedIn, you know, uses for like to refer, I guess. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And I think, again, that's where the endorsements come into. It's really wonderful to have people say wonderful things about you and to put it in a public space. So I highly recommend using that feature too. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, if not, if you want to stay connected, my full name on LinkedIn is Nicole, but I go by Nikki. So feel free to search me. If you want to email me, you absolutely can. And then finally, I added the link to my LinkedIn profile, or you can use the QR code to go directly to it. So I'd love to stay connected and learn about what you all are doing and see your profiles as they start to grow. So thank you so much for letting me be here today.
Great presentation, Nikki. Very informational. Thank you, Nikki and Judy, and everyone who joined us today. And don't forget to complete that evaluation. It will direct you straight to that whenever you leave the Zoom. All right, have a great afternoon.